You're familiar with Figma prototyping, but you're ready to take your skills to the next level. You've heard about variants and variables, but you get confused and are not sure which is which and how to use them. If you're new here, my name is Namat. I'm a product designer for the last 11 years and I'm also a design professor. I am here to help you simplify the logic of prototyping in Figma, understand how to use it, and move from beginner to advanced skills in prototyping. Important note, if you've just come across this video is part of a complete tutorial series for Figma in 2025. What we will be building today is on top of a previous iOS app project that we started. There are a few videos ahead that you will see. They are part of the playlist as well. If you want to follow along and you haven't completed those steps, feel free to go back and do them. There is also a template file in the description. Feel free to use it. What are we going to do today is take this to the next level and add advanced logic in prototyping in Figma. This is the power of Figma, that this tool allows you to create very realistic mock-ups that look so much like they have been programmed or coded like a final product. In order to add logic in Figma, it is very important that you understand the concept of variables and variants. And that's why we're going to get started by clarifying the difference and then move into the logic that we want to create for our application. So first of all, variants come from the word variation. They are a variation of a component. And if you've been following along with me in this tutorial, we've already created variants. We've already created two different states of a button within a component. Do you remember the component icon that is made of 4 lozenges on top of each other? You see that in the property panel on your left side when you're designing in Figma. That's a component. Now, a variant is one element of that component, and that's why the icon for it is that small lozenge that we would use. I'm just saying that so you remember it when we see it later and you recognize it so you can work with it. One thing to know just generally about variants, they are part of the same component set, but they have different values for the same property. So today, when we're designing this detailed view for different products, those products, they are all variants of that same component, which is a detailed product view. Variables are reusable values that represent certain design properties. At the time of recording this video, Figma has 4 types of variables that you can create locally. Variables for color, number, boolean, and string. You create a certain value and you store it in a variable to allow you to reuse it in a consistent manner. An example of a variable with our tutorial today of what we want to do is this cart component. In this cart component, the product name can be a variable. It is something that is changing, but it's something that we can store also. We can store what is the product name and change it at some point of time. And why we would do that? Variables are super helpful for prototyping to allow us to introduce logic, and that is why we're going to use them today. So what we want to do is click on one card and have that card recognize the selected product and accordingly show us the right view for that product. So if you come back to this logic, if we try to sketch it down or break it down into small steps, we want to check what is the product name of that card that is being clicked on, and we want to select the view accordingly that matches that product name. So if I click Dahlia, I want to fetch almost the information related to Dahlia. Each product we click, we want to pull in the relevant information. So in order to do that, first of all, the first step is we need to create different variants of this detailed view so that we can alternate them. Where we left off in the previous prototype is you already had one detailed view. You had the Dahlia detailed view. So what I would like you to do is create variations of your product page. And for now, if you're just doing this for the learning, don't worry about the details inside the page. Even if you just had one name written on each page to test the logic, just make sure you have 3 different variations of pages. With all of them selected, and mind you, each one of these is an actual frame. With all 3 of them selected, I will go here to the very top. Do you see the Create Component icon? If I click on it, this will not give me my optimal result because I have multiple frames selected. So I'm going to click on the drop down instead. And one option is Create Component. If I were to create just one component, all 3 frames would be the same component. That's not what I want. If I click Create Multiple Components, then it will make each one of them a separate component. What I actually want to generate variants is to create a component set. When I click this, you will see this purple outline happens around my 3 frames. And to look at this in the Layers panel, we created a component called Details. Let's call it Detailed View. If I open this component set, I'm going to click Option L on Mac to collapse all my layers. This is a very nice shortcut to collapse everything in the Layers panel for me to see things clearly. In this Details view, I have 3 variants. Remember that losange icon we were just talking about? It's a losange. Whether it's filled or it's empty with a stroke alone, it's still that losange shape, indicating this is a variant of the component set Detailed View. And what separates these 3 sets of components is the actual product name. With my component set selected, if you come here to the right property panel, and I want to click on the settings here, edit property, to change the name of this property. Let's call it product. In this detailed view, we have a shared property, which is a product, and we have 3 different values to it. So that's the first step we needed. Now, the second step that we need is to create a variable. And because we're getting started, we're doing this for the first time, let's look at how to create variables in Figma. So the criteria is nothing should be selected. If I have an element selected, do you see how my property panel always reflects the selected element? So I need nothing to be selected on my canvas so that local variables appear right here. Now when I click it, my variable panel opens up. And there's an empty state because I do not have any variables yet in this file. It says Create Variables. So when I click Create Variables, you see this drop down, and just like I mentioned before, at the time of this recording, there's only 4 available options in Figma. Color variables that you see at the very top allow you to create themes and different design system values, storing your colors so they are reusable. Number variables allow you to create logic. You will see I have another tutorial where I show you how to add items to a cart and mimic that logic of the number increasing in your cart. Boolean variables allow you to toggle something on and off. What we're using today is string variables. So I'm going to create my first string variable, and I want to call it selected product. And I want to give it a value of one of the options that I have from my product. So let's say Dahlia. And that's all I need for this first simple step. We're going to come back and create more variables later on and just look at more complexity. But in this initial step, one variable is all you need to create the logic that we want. Now that we've completed step 2, we can move to step 3. Which is we want to assign this variable we created, selected product, to a variant of detailed view. So remember how we created this detailed view component set? We want one variant of it to assign the logic to it. So I can click either one of them, click an option on Mac and drag, Alt on Windows, Alt and drag on Windows. You can see on my left layer panel that this is called detailed view. It's an empty lozenge, which is our indication this is a variant. So now, do you see how The variations of this particular component set was the product itself. And right now it's set to Petunia. Now, here you can see the apply variable option. We can apply a variable on this variant. So I'm going to click the apply variable option, and the only available option to us, because that's what we created right now, is selected product. You can already see that its value is Dahlia. When I assign it, it's going to switch the value Petunia. And once again, let's look at this in the drop down. So in this component set, we had options for Dahlia, Petunia, and Rose. But when we want to apply the variable, the selected product that we created, we've set it to Dahlia. So it's going to change this value to another existent value in the component set. As long as it matches one of its values, it's going to be able to switch it. So when I assign it, do you see? It selected it. And one thing to note here, that when it comes to variables, they are not case sensitive, in the sense whether I write Dahlia with a capital D or a small d, it doesn't matter. Still, it's gonna recognize that's the same value. So let's go back and do that. I'm gonna apply selected product value to this instance of the component. Now the next step is we wanna set the logic on our cards to tell them to go to selected value, the respective selected value. So we need a page, one of those pages that we've created before. I'm gonna command copy to copy this one, and I'll bring it here to step 4, and I'm gonna paste it. And let me bring this instance right here. So to add interactions in Figma, we will select the card where we want to add the interaction. We will come to prototype mode. And under prototype, you see this plus icon to add an interaction. So I will click it, and it generates this model for me where I can select the trigger. So we have many options. For me right now, because we are on mobile, it says on tap, because we've already established this as a mobile application. If you're working within a website, the trigger could be on click. And what I actually want, like we've established before, is to set the product selected view to the same value that is here in my card. So I want to say set variable, and the only variable we have is selected product. So I'm saying this selected product, set it, and I have the option to give it a value. So now, because we're doing this the first time in the simplest way possible, I'm going to show you how to set a string value, which is basically giving it a name that matches the current variant options. So to set a string value, you want to put it between quotations just so the system recognizes that this is the exact value you want to set. And in the case of this card, the value we want to set for the selected view is Rose. So I wrote the word Rose. Once again, it doesn't matter whether it's capital or small, Figma will recognize it. Once we have set it to Rose, we actually want to navigate to this page. We'll add a second interaction, and we'll say, once you've set selected product to Rose, navigate, and my destination here is detailed view is the name of the page. So how you recognize you're selecting the correct frame is, do you see the purple border and outline that is placed on the frame? That's how I recognize this is my correct frame. Let's test this. I want to preview it. I can either click the preview icon from the top bar, or we can learn this very handy shortcut. Shift space bar will open up my preview right here. So let's see. I click on Rose and I instantly move to this page. So the logic is working. Now, let's go back and revisit this interaction. We spoke about secondary navigation in a previous tutorial. So when I navigate to detailed view, I don't want this to be an instant transition. I actually want it to be a slide-in transition because we're going one level deeper. And let me show you how that looks like. So we're going to ease in and change. Shift space bar to show the preview, and now when I click on Rose, I slide in. Great, this logic is working. Now let's go and apply it to the other cards. The easiest way to do this is to hover on the interaction itself. With my interaction open, I'm going to click Command Copy, and now I will come to the other card and Command V on Mac, Control V on Windows. My interaction is copied, and now I want to change it. What I'm saying is set variable selected product, but this is not rose, this is a dahlia. So let's change the value rose to dahlia, set it to dahlia, and then navigate to selected view. And automatically selected view is going to take the dahlia value. Now, once again, let's copy this interaction. I'll show you another way to copy an interaction. While hovered on it, you can come right here in the top property bar and make sure it turns blue. When it's blue, that means it's kind of selected. There is no option to right click at this point of the recording, but if you click Command Copy when it's blue in the property bar, it will actually copy the interaction. And I'll come to this card and click Command V, and it copied it. I'm going to open the interaction and change the value this time from dahlia to petunia. Now, let's go back and test if this is working. With my preview open, I'm going to click on rose. Here you go. I slide into rose. Click on dahlia. I slide into dahlia, and click on petunia. We slide into petunia. Hooray! This is our desired outcome. This was the simplest way possible to do it. Just one variable. We've added the logic that we wanted. Now, let's do the same thing with a little more complexity so that I can introduce you to modes in Figma. Modes are different collections. Like you can see in this swatch icon that Figma has created for modes, they give you the ability to move or switch between different collections. That could be a collection of colors. For example, we can use modes to create themes or modes like light and dark. But also they can be used like we want to use them right here in this example to switch different languages or content or device sizes even when you're using number variables. So in this screenshot, I'm showing you an example where for the same product, I used 3 modes: dahlia, rose, petunia, and the content was a product name, a product description, product details, and price that could change for each mode. In the second method that we want to do, which is a little bit more complex but also more efficient, we're going to leverage modes, variables, and variants. So step 1 would be exactly the same as what we have done in the previous method, which is create variants of the detailed view. Because to navigate to the detailed view, you need variants. Now, we could have achieved this change by modes themselves. However, at the current time of this recording, Figma does not have variables for images. So we're not able to switch the image via mode. In this first step, we're retracing the same step we've done before, which is we have our variants of the selected view that we want to navigate to. Now in step 2, we need 2 variables this time in different collections. One of them we already have created, which is selected product, but in a different collection, we're gonna create modes of this product, changing it. So let's do that and click on my local variables. And as you can see in this first collection, we have our selected product. So let's rename this collection to make sense of what we're doing. Collections could include many things. So if we were creating color variables in this file, I could have a collection that says colors and it will include all my colors. Now, I want to create a new collection, which I'm going to call products. And in this collection, I want to create another string variable we will call product name. The first value I want to give it is dahlia. How do we create a mode? In the professional and paid plans of Figma, you have the ability to create multiple modes, even in Figma education licenses. So do you see On the top right, there is this plus icon and it says new variable mode. So when I click it, what will happen is an additional column will get created horizontally in Figma. And this is very important. We could create layers of variables vertically, but they will not change the same way. Modes are horizontal values that we're going to be able to switch. Because this collection is called products, I'm going to call the top layer, my top mode, the same as the product. So in this case, Dahlia. The mode is Dahlia, and in Dahlia mode, my product name is Dahlia. In Petunia mode, it's Petunia. And I'm going to create one more mode that I will call Rose. For you to understand this a little bit more, I'm going to create an additional variable. We're not going to be using it here, but just to show you how you would use modes in this context. So I'm going to create another variable here, also string variable, that we can call product description. You can add different values to the descriptions. So for now, I'm just going to use a very simple color just to indicate the change. So here I'm going to say pink. Here I'm going to say yellow for the petunia. And for the rose, I will say light pink. And now we have two variables under the collection product that are changing per mode. When the product changes, these values are going to change. So let's close our variable panel and move to our next step. Now the third step would be to assign the product name variable to the title of these cards. Then change the modes to show different values. In a previous tutorial, when we created this card component, we created properties for it. You can see them right here with it selected. It had a title, it had the ability to show and hide description, and it had a description value in it. Those are text properties that were added and a Boolean property. Now, I want to link those values with my variable. So in this case, the title, I want it to be linked to the product name. So hovering on the title, you can see the variable icon right here, apply variable or property. When I click on it, it shows me available variables that I have. This is under the views collection selected product. That's not what I want. What I want to assign is a product name to this card. And just for the purpose of demoing, even though we won't need this to shift between the logic, I'm just going to apply a product description just for you to see how things will change. And you'll see it changed the value here to Dahlia. Now remember how I mentioned at the time of this recording, images cannot be switched through modes. Only the text variables, the Boolean or the number variables can be switched because Figma does not have an image variable. So I can see that my image in this product is still showing a rose, but because I've assigned the variable, it reset my text to Dahlia and pink for description. So how do I shift those? To shift them to the correct value to match my image, that's when I'm going to use my modes, because remember we had multiple product modes. So to access modes in Figma, do you remember the beautiful icon I drew for you, just so you can remember where to find it in Figma? Under Appearance, modes are found under Appearance because it's a change of layer. You will see this icon that looks like a fan or a swatch, and you can click on it, apply variable modes. And when you do, it shows us the different values. So in this file, I have 3 values, Dahlia, Petunia, and Rose for products. Now I can see the image, this is a rose, so I'm gonna select Rose. And here you go. My product title and description have been changed to reflect the mode that I've selected. Now I'm gonna go to the second card and do the same thing. In design mode, with my card selected, I want to make sure it has a title that matches the variable product name, and the description is product description. Same for the third one. Let's give it the correct variable, product name and product description. And to reflect the image accurately, I will go down to Appearance, change the mode for this one to this is a petunia, so I want it to be petunia. My description and title have changed. For Dahlia, it is correct. It's the correct value because this is our default. And now we've completed our second step, which is we've applied those product name and description variables to our cards, and we used modes to switch them to the correct value that we wanted. Now, step 4 is very similar to what we've done in the simpler method before, which is we have a variant of detailed view, and rather than having a text value, we want to apply the variable selected product to it. And because we've set selected product before to Dahlia, it automatically reset all these values inside. So now I want to add the logic. And I'm going to introduce you to the Figma conditional logic, which is slightly more complex than simply setting a variable. Let's talk through the logic, then we'll go ahead and create it. If you've ever been exposed to programming or coding, this is the logic that we are thinking. What I want to check is, if the product name in the card is equal to that selected view, then go ahead and show me that selected view. Else means if not, if it is not equal to it. So for example, if my card says Dahlia, but my selected view says Petunia, if it's not equal to it, then go ahead and set the variable selected view to my actual product name, then navigate to it. Let's put this in action. It's okay if you're not getting it the first time, but you will with practice. And now with my card selected, there's no other interactions. I'll click the plus button to create an interaction. On tap, that's my trigger. In the drop down, previously we've used set variable. This time we can say conditional. And what I wanted to ask is, if product name in the card is equivalent to the selected view. So let's see that. I already have these in my variables. So product name is equal. Do you see the options? Once I've selected the variable product name, I have two options in this condition. Either it's equal to or not equal to. I want to say, if it's equal to selected product, this is the if. It's saying, what do you want to do? I'm going to add an action. So if it's equal to it, I want to just go there. Let me navigate there. So I'm going to say navigate to, and the destination is this detailed view. I'm navigating to the right detailed view with my purple outline on the frame. That's how I recognize this is the one. And the animation I want to add, we're familiar with this already, is a slide in. Now, the else, what if it's not equal to it? Now, this is when I want to use set variable again. And I'm going to say, set the variable selected product to product name. So I'm saying, if it's not equal to it, set it to become equal to it. So set selected product to product name. And then I want to add an interaction which says, now navigate to detailed view. We applied this on rows, so obviously the product name is not equivalent to detailed view, which means the logic should jump automatically to the second phrase, which is else. Let's test it. And now my preview is generated, and I want to click on rows, and it did go to rows. I don't see the slide in, but clearly it did read that this is not equivalent to Dahlia, so it changed it to rows and navigated to it. Let's go back to this interaction and see it. Yes, we're seeing, and the navigate to, yes, my animation is instant, so I want to move it to slide in. Let's test it once again. Yes, it slided in. That's working. That's awesome. So now let's copy the same interaction. With my interaction open, I will click Command Copy. And one thing to note, why I said this is more efficient than the previous method is, we don't have to write a different string variable every time. We don't have to change it because the product name is a variable. So the Figma logic is checking what is the product name. We don't have to write it for it and say Rose, Dahlia, Petunia. It's already checking that on our behalf. So I'm going to copy the interaction exactly as it is, Command Copy, and I'm going to come here, Command V. I will do the same for Petunia, and I don't have to change it because this is embedded in our logic. Let's test this. Rose is working. Dahlia is working. Petunia is working. Hooray! And now you've learned conditionals in Figma logic, which is very, very powerful. I am sure there is more ways of doing and achieving the same result. Probably now that you've gotten this concept, you can come up with many more brilliant ways to add interactions in Figma, including maybe using this newly added set variable modes. So in this video, I'm not going to go further because I think this was already an overload of logic, but maybe you can explore it and post it in the comments. How else would you achieve the same result? Maybe you have a more efficient way. And that's my invitation to you. Please share it with me if you come up with a better way of doing this than I have. Thank you for sticking along in this tutorial. I hope they are useful to you and they're enriching your design journey. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this, where together we explore and simplify the Figma interface. Thank you so much.